Oh, come on. It's being fun.
Lael was lying down, covered in sweat. He was testing his skills with them, shooting targets with his gun, with a silencer incorporated while running, hunting animals, harvesting, planting, disarming and creating fake bombs, and fighting with Nale and Edath were part of Lael's test. It was noon by the time he ended up doing everything. Simon had been amused watching everything, only helping out when it came to the bombs, although it was Edath's specialty.
I'm really tired.
For a cop, you are quite weak.
She helped him get up, still with a grin on her face. Lael was going to correct her, but he gave up.
You did well in shooting targets, and you have some good fighting techniques. You could survive if it only came to that. But if we start to speak about the rest, you have a lot to learn, pal.
She patted him on the shoulder.
But don't be upset. We will help you out, and I'm pretty sure you'll do a good job.
When you say we, you mean...
Yes, you too, Simon.
Simon whined, but she ignored him and looked to Lael.
Don't mind him. He has a screw loose, but he'll help you nonetheless.
I'm glad.
Nale scribbled down something and then showed to Aiken.
You have good aim. I can also teach you a few fighting techniques and help you build strength.
It said. Aiken nodded and smiled to him, who smiled back.
Thank you, Nale. I appreciate it.
Well, I have bad news for you, though. You probably want to take a bath, but we don't really have a bathroom, so...
She pointed to west.
You have a river there where we pick up water so we can drink after treating it, so please don't use it as a bathroom.
She then pointed to east.
There is the sea, where you're free to do what you want, except drowning, because we don't want you dead.
Oh, I have to get used to this.
Aiken closed his eyes for a brief moment, thinking about his small apartment that he took for granted. He then opened his eyes and looked at her.
Wait, so behind those curtains, wasn't there a bathroom?
Lael interrupted himself as he saw Edath's face turn into mockery.
Oh, that's so cute! Simon is a great inventor, but he can't make such a thing as a bathroom here!
Lael looked away and blushed because of his stupid question.
That's just more weapons. We don't really have a storage, so we try to put some of the weapons behind those curtains so our house could look a bit tidier.
She explained. Lael looked at her with a "you're joking, right?" expression on his face.
Get used to it, noob. You'll be living here, unless you get yourself killed.
Well, I'm going to hit the showers now.
Lael said, turning to east, but then stopped and scratched his back. He didn't have any cloth or anything to wash out or dry out. He bit his lip. He looked to them, and Nale gave him his notebook.
Why are you going to hit the showers?
It's an expression that means, I'm going to take a shower.
He explained with a grin on his face. He noticed the others were still surprised by the meaning of that, which made him laugh. Lael then stopped laughing.
I need...
You'll need to wear something more practical. I'm sure we can get something in there.
Simon guessed and pointed towards the house so Lael would follow him. Inside it, Simon led Lael towards an old closet that was leaned on the wall and opened it. He started to scour the clothes and hesitated for a moment. Lael tilted his head and looked to him. Simon made a half smile and grabbed a sleeveless long dark green jacket out of the closet and gave it to him. Aiken noticed sadness and something else on his good eye.
This will never be used, so you can take it. I'll find a shirt and some trousers meanwhile.
Is it really okay?
Lael asked, trying to understand his reaction. Simon stayed in silence for a few more seconds until he found some khaki trousers and a white tank top.
Of course it is. Here, take this. I know it's not the best good-looking stuff, but it's some of our deceased colleagues' clothing. I hope you don't mind that.
Simon explained, handing out the cloth. Lael accepted it and smiled to him. He was trying to shake off the thoughts of wearing a dead man's cloth.
Also, Here's a necklace of our island symbol. Looks silly enough, but it's what you get when you're one of us. If you walk around town, you'll see plenty of people with this symbol. I only have a similar necklace, but those idiots out there have these tattooed on their body. You already noticed Edath, I believe. That's basically what makes you different from the merch, as they say.
Lael looked at the symbol closely. It looked like a target mark, but with 2 circles inside, one larger than the other. It also had 2 parallel lines that seemed to be parallel to an inexistent bisector of the even quadrants and what it looked like a lightning in the place of the bisector of the odd quadrants. Lael thought that this symbol looked quite mathematically interesting.
That one was Firos. He was one of our best fighters. Until...
I'll treasure it.
Aiken couldn't imagine losing his teammates.
Yes. Because I've got to save them.
Lael knew that in his work, optimism wasn't always welcomed. But he couldn't help but be optimistic in these times. Carver used to say that getting high hopes could lead them to a greater despair, and in the field they were. It was better to be a pessimistic person than an optimistic one. Suddenly Edath's voice popped up on Lael's head.
You weren't brought here and got accidentally kidnapped for no reason.
He shook his head mentally.
I can't believe Carver would bring us here. To our death.
Aiken bit his lip, trying to suppress those thoughts, but failing.
Now that I think about it, I don't remember seeing Julian along with Martha and the others. Please don't tell me that he got killed while I was passed out.
Lael, are you okay? I mean, I'm goddamn philosophical, and this kinda contradicts my pragmatic thinking when it comes to technologies, but you don't really need to think too deep on what I say. In the end, I'm a simple guy.
Simon interrupted Aiken's thoughts, making him wake up from his world.
Oh yes, sorry. I was... never mind. Thank you. I shall get going.
He said and started to walk away from the house.
Oi! You're walking north. You don't really want to go there.
Simon gestured at Lael, so he would come with him. After Simon indicated the place, he left Lael by himself. He looked back so he was sure no one was really there. He sighed.
They really do trust me this much, by leaving me all alone and believing I'm not running away.
Aiken concluded, taking off his clothes and approaching the sea, which wasn't as cold as he imagined.
Even if I tried to run, where would I go? It would be a stupid move.
Lael explained to himself as he slowly walked more into the sea, swimming around as he washed himself. Simon had explained that the reason they wouldn't take a bath in the river was because it was too close to the civilization, and spending more time than needed in there could be troubling. So they only went there to pick up water. Once the water in the sea was too salty, Lael had noticed their skin wasn't really shiny and was really dry, and now he understood the reason for it. Simon also explained that he was trying to create a better mechanism to filter the water. And if he managed to do that, Nale would create an improvised bathtub, and they could actually take a bath.
For some guys that were born and live on a remote island, they're actually quite civilized.
Lael was floating, trying to relax and forgetting that that day happened.
Maybe when I wake up, someone will have noticed that we're missing, and will come to rescue us all.
After spending a little more time, he decided to come back. He put on his new clothes, and grabbed his old ones, returning back.
You look good in those clothes, better than Firo himself.
Edath was sitting in the ground, stretching her legs. She was covered in sweat, which was probably due to her training. Nale was still training, shadow boxing far from them. He had taken off his shirt. Lael noticed the symbol of the island on his chest, and also 4 diagonal lines carved on the other side of the chest.
Thanks. She's quite straightforward.
Lael tried not to feel embarrassed in front of her. As she was stretching, her top revealed her chest area a bit more. Lael couldn't help but look. There were also the same diagonal lines, but in this case, he counted 5. Edath looked at him, making him look away, blushing.
Were you looking at my boobs, you perv?
I was actually noticing that you guys have some lines carved in your chest, and I was wondering what the meaning of that was.
Lael remembered that the man who beat him up and sold him also had those lines.
Oh, this.
She pointed to the lines. Lael peeked, trying not to look anywhere but the lines in Edath's eyes.
These are basically our birthday certificates, or whatever you may call it. I believe you celebrate your birthday every year, right? Well, we don't really do that. To be honest, I don't even know exactly when I was born. I go for a fake date when I have to pretend to have a birthday. To simplify this, we self-evaluate us when it comes to experience. The more things we have experienced, the more lines we had. We can only have 5, though. Don't ask why. It's our thing, I guess.
On what criteria do you base your experience?
It's pretty subjective. It can be feelings like love, sorrow, happiness, rage, or other experiences, like the loss of someone, sex, murdering, and so on.
Lael noticed Edath also had some small lines carved in her back while she was talking.
I guess I get it. What about those lines on your... Ah! What's going on?
Oh, don't mind him. Some days he goes through a moment where he realizes he is stupid.
Oh.
Lael was unsure about what to do. He saw Simon angrily going outside the house towards their direction, with what it seemed a really pissed-off expression.
Simon!
Simon grumbled as he quickly approached them. He was walking heavily and had a psychotic expression in his good eye. Lael recoiled for a bit. He didn't understand what was happening.
Simone?
I'll make you pay for what you've done. You always do this to me, and I can't allow that.
Lael was really confused, and for a second he really thought he was going to hit Edath.
Sure, come here.
As Simon tried to come closer to Edath, she tackled him with all her strength and made them both fall down. Edath grabbed his face and made him look right to her.
Simon, it's okay. I'm Edath. Nale is over there being a complete asshole and ignoring us, and Lael is thinking you are crazy. It's over.
She patted his face as she spoke fast but softly. Simon stopped flouncing, and his expression started to change back to normal after a few seconds. He looked to her, and then to Nale and Lael. He made a half smile.
It happened again. I'm sorry.
He covered his face with his hands, sighing out loud.
Could you get off? You're ridiculously heavy for a female.
Edath made a strange face which seemed to be embarrassment and anger and stood up, helping Simon to get up as well. Nale suddenly showed up with an innocent smile. Edath shook her head.
Now you're here. Great help you were. He's your cousin, not mine.
Nale smiled even more and made a circular movement with his hand closed right upon his chest. Edath rolled her eyes.
Yeah, you're sorry my ass. You're mute, not deaf.
She ended up smiling in the end. Even Lael ended up smiling. He understood Nale had that influence on them. Simon approached him and patted his shoulder.
I didn't mean to scare you. I'm sorry, pal.
He then moved towards inside the house again.
Simon has a trauma that he doesn't like to speak about.
Edath explained. She shook her head and then got 3 large buckets from inside the house. She looked to Nale and Lael and threw them a bucket to each.
Come,
She said while walking to west. Aiken nodded and followed her. After 5 minutes walking in silence, Aiken could see a river.
This must be the river they talked about.
As they approached it, Edath and Nale dove their buckets in the water until they got full. Lael copied them. He was still curious about what happened with Simon. Edath seemed to know that, and as they were walking back, she began to speak.
Simon has these outbreaks now and then when he's feeling more anxious or when he's deeply grieving. This is due to his past. I'm sure he might tell you if you ask him.
Oh. I see. So, the bizarre behavior is due to some trauma.
Lael simplified. He wasn't sure he'd ask Simon what happened, as they barely met, so he decided not to speak about it.